Today's class is going to be split into two parts. The first part I am going to discuss, just firstly review the heap data structure once again quickly for those of you who did not understand it well enough yesterday. You have a chance to ask questions and clarify doubts regarding the heap data structure. We got to understand it well. Okay. After doing that, I want to talk about some of the limitations of the heap data structure, specifically for certain applications, and we will then introduce two kinds of heaps, binomial heaps and Fibonacci heaps. Now I have seen the syllabus of many of your colleges, and I know that some of the colleges maybe these topics are not part of your syllabus, but even then it might be worth for you to understand. I am not going to discuss it in very great detail, only at a somewhat high level. So it will be good for you to understand that there are these variations of heaps, and for those colleges, some of the colleges have these topics introduced in a fair amount of detail. For those colleges, this might be just an introduction, and you may have to learn a bit more to make sure that you are covering everything that is in your syllabus. So it's kind of in between, in some sense, the extreme ends of syllabi, right? Some of them where you don't have it at all in the syllabus, and some where you have it in a lot of detail. Somewhere in the middle is what I have positioned it. Okay. Now before I get into this, we want to take a quick relook at what we learned in the last class on Friday on priority queues and how they are implemented using heaps. So we said basically that priority queues are required in many applications where the elements are coming in some order, and each element comes with a priority value, right? It's also called the key value, and we can assume basically that the key value, lower key value has higher priority, or you can assume that a higher key value has a higher priority. So if you have a lower key value as a higher priority, then you are looking to extract at any given point in time the minimum key value from the set. If you have a higher key value as the higher priority, then you are looking at any given point in time to extract the maximum of the elements in the set at any given point in time. Okay. So the operations that we want to do on the priority queue are, as the elements are coming in, you want to insert the element into the priority queue. You want to extract the element which has the minimum key or maximum key if you are going to do what's called the max heap, right? The typical heap is called the min heap, what we discussed in the last class. If you, on the other hand, if you are trying to look for the maximum value, not the minimum value, then that heap will be called a max heap. Okay. So for the purpose of this class, let's just keep min heap, but you have a similar type of heap which is called max heap that you can do exactly the same as min heap, except that replace min by max and replace less than by greater than, and you will get it. Okay. So in the min heap, or the priority queue implemented as a min heap, you are looking to insert elements into the heap. You are looking to extract the minimum element. When you say extract, it consists of two operations. One is to find the minimum element in the heap, and the second is to delete that minimum element from the heap. So the three operations are insert, delete, and find the minimum. Okay. And we saw basically that the heap data structure is like a binary tree, which means that every node has two children at most, and some nodes may have no children, they are called leaves. Some nodes may have like in this diagram, for example, 15, 17, 20, 9, 15 are leaves because they have no children. Some nodes have two children, like 1, 2, 5, 10, 3 have two children, and some node was only one node at most which can have one child. There was a question at the end also of the last session where this was asked. There can be only one node which can have a single child, or there may be 0 nodes which have single child. Okay. So in this case 7 has a single child 15. Now why that is the case? The case that you say that there is only one node with a single child, because the heap is constructed or filled, as it's called, from top to down. So you will start with the root, you will fill the root, then you will take the descendants of the root, you will fill that, then you will take the descendants the next level, this level, and you will fill it. So you will fill 10, 3, 7, 11, then you will come to this next level, and then you will start filling it from left to right. So which means that at any given point in time, if you have come, for example, to this point over here, you have filled all the previous elements. So you have filled both the descendants of 10 has been filled, both the descendants of 3 have been filled, only then you will come to 7 and you will start filling. So then after this you are going to fill over here, then you are going to look at the 2 children of 11. So that is how the heap is filled up, okay. And the reason why we do it, we fill up the heap in that order, is because then you can store the data in an array in a contiguous fashion. So how do you store it? You store first 1 in the array, then you store 2 and 5 in the array, then you store 10, 3, 7, 11 in the array, then you store 15, 17, 19, 17, 29, 15 in the array. So the last element that you will store basically is the last element in the heap here, and the first vacant spot in the heap is the second child of 7, okay. That is the last element of the array, that is after the last element, the first point after the last element in the array, that is the first vacant spot. So given this knowledge, and also the other key thing that about the heap, I mean this is just, you can put any random bunch of numbers into a binary structure like this. So there has to be something which makes it into a specific heap, and what we have said basically that the key property that the heap has is that as you go up from a node, the key values have to decrease, okay, in a min heap. So 15, if you go up, you come to 7 which is less, you go up, you come to 5 which is less, could be equal also, you could have 7 and this could also be 7, and you could go up and you find that it is 1 which is less. So as you go up, the key value should either be the same or should decrease, but can't increase, is that right? So as a result, the heap will always have, the min heap will always have the minimum value at the root. You could also have something called a max heap, in which instead of saying that as you go up from the node the value should decrease, you can say that as you go up from the node the value should increase. So in a max heap you will have this going up, it will be either equal or it will be increasing in value, in which case the root node, in this case it is having the minimum value. In a max heap the root node will have the maximum value. So you can construct a very similar heap to the min heap, which is called a max heap, where you use greater than rather than less than to go up, okay. Now given this knowledge of heap, which basically means that we have stored it as a binary tree, we are filling it in such a way that the last element, everything is filled, all the levels are fully filled, and only the last row, the last thing is left unfilled like this as we have shown here, and that every element as you go up you find a smaller key value. These are the 3 properties of the heap. Then we know basically that you can do operations insert, delete and minimum operation very easily. How do you do minimum? You just take the root node, that is the minimum, so you are done, very simple. If you want to insert something into the heap, what we said we should do basically is you insert it at the end, because that is the first vacant spot that is available. You insert your new element at the end of the heap, put it over here, but when you do that, the property that as you go up the key value should decrease, that property may be violated. So we say that the heap is damaged, alright, we say the heap is damaged. So in order to fix the heap, you do an operation which we called last time, we defined it as heapify up. What does heapify up do? It keeps exchanging values as you go up the heap. So if you put for example 3 over here, you exchange 3 with 7, then 3 comes here, then you exchange 3 with 5, so 3 comes here, and now we are okay because 3 is greater than 1, say okay. So that's how you heapify up, right? So that's how you do insert. You insert it at the end of the heap and then do heapify up in order to fix the heap, and that's how you insert an element. Similarly, if you want to delete an element, so let's say we want to delete 11, no problem, you can just delete 11, you are done. But if you want to delete a number, let's say if you want to delete 1, then if 1 is gone then the heap is broken, so you need to do something. So what you do is you take the last element, in this case 15 is the last element, you put 15 in place of 1, right? So you put 15 in place of 1 and remove 1. So now you have a heap which is going from 15, then you have 2, 5 like this, but 7 has no children because 15 has been removed, so 7 has no children now. But when you put 15 over here, 15 is greater than 2 and 5, so therefore the heap is damaged. So you do an operation which is called heapify down. So which means that you look at the smaller of the 2, so 2 and 5, the smaller element is 2, so you swap 2 with 15, so 15 comes here, you swap that 15 now with the smaller of these 2, so smaller is 3, so you swap it with 3, so 15 comes here, then you see that 20 and 9, so 20 is greater than 15, 9 is smaller than 15, so you swap it with 15, so 15 comes here. So 9 went here, 3 went here, 2 went here, and you now have a heap, proper heap. Okay, that's the way you do delete. So very simple, extract minimum, just take out the minimum at the top of the heap, insert, put it at the end of the heap, put it at the end of the array, and keep doing a number of swaps. How many swaps do you have to do? You have to swap up the heap. So the number of swaps you will do basically is the height of the tree, right? And similarly, when you want to delete, you basically swap, you take the last element and put it at the node wherever you are deleting, whichever, let's say you are deleting 2, Take the last element and put it here and then heapify down from here. So you push that 15 which has come up the heap, you push it down, bubble it down, okay, by doing swaps. And that way the number of swaps that you will do basically again is equal to the height of the heap. Now we know basically the height of the heap is going to be order log n because the number of nodes that you are filling in the tree is going up exponentially. 1, then you put 2 in the next level, you put 4 in the next level, you put 8 in the next level, 16 in the next level and so on. So the tree is growing exponentially in terms of size, which basically means that if you have n given nodes in the heap, then the height of the heap is going to be order of log n. You know the inverse of exponential is log, you know that. So if the height is log n, then the number of elements is exponential e to the log n, which is n. So therefore you know basically that the n elements in the heap, the height of the heap is log n, which is why we know now that the operations on the priority queue, that is operation on the heap, are all log n time. Finding the minimum is constant time operation, inserting an element is log n because you have to do heapify up, and deleting an element is log n because you do heapify down. So in both cases you are traversing only one path in the tree, and that is order log n in size. Therefore it is order log n complexity. Okay, so that was a relatively simple data structure called a heap, which you can implement with just an array. Of course, one thing that we discussed in the last class, and it's important to note basically, is that the order in which you stored it, the fact that you stored 1 in the first place, 2 and 5 in the second and third place and so on like this, allows you to find the parent and child in the array very easily. So to find the left child of a node which is stored at I, you just have to do 2 times I. To find the right child you just have to do 2i plus 1, and to find the parent you just have to do I by 2 and take the floor. So by just doing some algebra on the indices, you are able to navigate the tree. Alright, that's a very beautiful thing, because now I don't need to use pointers, lists and all that, right, very complicated to write programs with all that. So if we can do things with an array and do algebra to get the elements right in the array, which will give me the positions in the tree, much easier and much more elegant and much nicer to do it that way. So the heap that way is a very simple data structure, because you can implement an array and navigate the tree completely using only algebra, right, 2i plus 1 to get to children and I by 2 to get to the parent, and all the 3 operations are very simple to implement. Okay, so given that background of what we did in the last class, I want to introduce to you the first problem that we have with heaps. Why are heaps not good enough, right, in many applications? Now some applications they require that we build the heap up not one by one, right, in the sense that I have elements coming one by one, so I put it into the heap one by one, right, but they built the heap in the way we build a list with using merge sort, for example. So I might build a heap like this. I may say, to build a given heap, I have already given 2 heaps are given to me, and what I want to do is I want to merge these 2 heaps, that is make the union of these 2 heaps to create a new heap. Okay, if I want to do that, then what is the complexity of making a union of 2 heaps, merging 2 heaps is what I want to know. So the heap is getting constructed in through a divide and conquer process, as we call it, right. Divide and conquer means I am given a big set of numbers, I need to deal with this set of numbers. So I say I don't know how to handle such a large number of elements. So rather than trying to attack the problem with this very large number of elements, I divide the problem into 2 parts, each of size n by 2. So I take the left half, which is n by 2 elements, I take another set, I break it into another set which is n by 2, 2 n by 2 sets, and each n by 2 set I deal with separately, right. So then maybe I use a heap to solve this first n by 2 problem, I use a heap to solve the second n by 2 problem, and then these 2 heaps I want to put together, right, to solve the bigger problem of order n. So divide and conquer method, just like greedy, right, whatever we discussed, greedy is one method of doing problems which require priority queue. Divide and conquer is another generic method of solving problems. If you are going to use divide and conquer, and if it turns out that your divide and conquer require heaps, then putting the heaps together requires you to do heap union or heap merge. Now what is the complexity of doing heap merge with the heap data structure we found in the last class, used in the last class? The answer is that the complexity of heap merge is order n, because I can find the minimum of the 2 heaps. So I can take the minimum of the first heap, I can take the minimum of the second heap and compare which one is less. The The lesser one I can take and put it in the final list, final heap. Then after that I can basically again look for the minimum between the two heaps, take out the minimum and put it in the final heap and go on like this. But I have to extract all the n elements and put it in a new heap. So therefore the operation cost is order n. Okay. So the cost of merging two heaps is order n. So we don't want to do order n to merge the heaps if it can be done much simpler. For example, if I can do it in order log n, maybe there are lots of advantages. For example, in merge sort, so yeah, so there are examples where if you can do it in log n, you might be able to get a lot of advantage out of it. So what kind of a heap data structure would we use? What modification of the heap data structure would we need if I want to do the union operation in order log n? That's the question we are asking. Okay. So we know that the make heap operation, which means the complexity of making a heap given making a empty heap is order 1 time, inserting an element into the binary heap is order log n. So I don't want to make it worse than this, so I should have order log n here. Finding the minimum in a binary heap is order 1. Now since I know that most operations just don't find the minimum, they'll do a minimum and then do delete or something, and the delete which is delete is order log n. So extract min, which is finding the minimum and deleting, is order log n. Therefore I don't mind minimum being order log n if required to be, right? It's okay if it's order log n. So as long as none of the operations are getting worse than log n, I want to do, in addition to all that, I want to improve the union time from order n to order log n. So what modification do I do to the heap data structure so that I can keep all the other operations at order log n worst case, but I can make union to happen in order log n? This is the question we are asking today, alright. And the answer is that the modification we'll make is a somewhat involved data structure which is called a binomial heap, alright. Now these kinds of heaps, binomial heap and later we'll discuss Fibonacci heaps, are all heaps that are constructed in some sense in a very interesting way, right? You make the heap, you construct the heap, you produce the heap in a process, through a process which is very interesting. So it is it's important for you to understand how the heap is constructed, and a lot of the proofs about these heaps and so on are based on how we construct it. So a binomial tree, right? A binomial tree is not binary. Okay, binomial, though binomial, bi stands for 2, don't confuse binomial for binary. Binary means every node has 2 children. In a binomial tree, node may have more than 2 children. As you can see here, this node has 3 children, 1, 2, 3, right? It has 3 children. So in a binomial tree, nodes may have any number of children. We'll discuss how many children they have. But a binomial tree Bk of order k is defined recursively like this. B0 is a tree with just one node. So this is B0. B1 is obtained by putting two B0 trees together. Okay. So this is a B0 tree and this is a B0 tree. And however we put the two trees together, we made one tree the child of the other tree. That's how we put it together. So this is a B0 tree and this is another B0 tree, and one B0 tree has become the child of the other B0 tree. Now which child will make the child of the other? Clearly we will look at the key values that are sitting here. So if this B0 has a key value K1 and this B0 has a key value K2 and K1 is greater than K2, which means K2 is the smaller key, then clearly you should make this B0 a child of this B0, so that it is in the priority heap, priority tree, priority queue or heap order, right? It's in the heap order. So basically you put the smaller key at the top, right? That's what we want to do. Similarly, the B2 binomial tree is obtained by taking two B1 binomial trees, right? So here are two B1 binomial trees, and you make one B1 binomial tree a child of the other B1 binomial tree. So this is one B1 binomial tree, this is one B1 binomial tree, you made this B1 binomial tree the left child, always the left child, okay, of the other B1 binomial tree. So here we made one B0 binomial tree, the left child of the other. Here we are making one B1 binomial tree, the left child of the other. Now which B1 binomial tree do you put in the left child? You will put the one which has the higher key on the left, okay, which means that the smaller key will always be on the top. Similarly, you make a B3 binomial tree by taking two B2 binomial trees. So you can see these are two B2 binomial trees, and you make one B2 binomial tree a child of the other, right? So you make this B2 binomial tree a child of this B2 binomial tree, right? And you'll do it in such a way that the key that is there on this node is greater than or equal to the key that is there on this node, right? So therefore the smaller key will always be on the top. So this is how you build all the BK trees. So if you have got BK minus 1 tree, you can build a BK tree by taking two BK minus 1 trees and making one BK minus 1 tree the child of the other BK minus 1 tree. Okay. Now what is this? So what we have defined is a binomial tree. Don't confuse with binary tree. Okay, binomial tree is constructed the way I described it. Now binomial tree, the BK tree will have k children, right? The root node of BK tree will actually have k children. So don't confuse it with binary tree. It's not at all binary. Okay, so it's a binomial tree. Now what is a binomial heap? A binomial heap is a collection of binomial trees. Okay, a collection, just a collection of binomial trees. But there is a condition we are placing. The condition is that no two binomial trees in this collection, right, should have the same order. No two binomial trees must have the same order. So all the binomial trees in the binomial heap must have different orders. For example, I can make a binomial heap taking B1 and B3. B1 is of order 1, B3 is of order 3, they are different orders. So the binomial heap is just consisting of two binomial trees B1 and B3. You can make another one which is B0 and B1, another one which is B0 and B2, another one which is B0, B2 and B3, another one which is B0, B1, B2, B3, like that. Okay, but you cannot have in the binomial heap, you cannot have two B3s, or you cannot have two B2s, or you cannot have two B1s, like that. Okay, so they should be all different orders. So it's very clear to see because of the way in which this is going. So you can see this is going in a binary fashion, right? So B0 basically has one node, B1 has two nodes. So if you write in base 2 notation, if you write number, then you can see that the digit unitary place, the last place, will be something which will have either value 0 or 1, right? So that is B0 in some sense. Here we have 2, so the ones place, the next place basically is the is 2 in binary notation. The next place represents 4 in binary notation. Next place represents 8 in binary notation. Next place represents 16, then 32, then 64, like that. So you can see here basically that the number of nodes in the binomial tree is growing in the same way as the value of the position in a binary number. So it's going here 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, and so on. And because of this, binomial heap, which is a collection of binomial trees, each with a different order, represents basically just a binary number. So if I have a binary number 101, so 101 basically in binary says first, so first one in 101 basically represents the 4th place. So we have a 1 in the 4th place. Okay, then we have a 0, so we have 0 in the 2th place. And then we have a 1, so we have 1 in the 1 place, so 4 plus 1 is 5, so 101 represents 5. When you look at it from a binomial heap perspective, if I have 101, it basically means I have a B2 tree, I don't have a B1 tree because that is 0, and I have a B0 tree. So a B2 tree and a B0 tree will be 101. Okay, so that will have 5 nodes, 101 is 5, right? And 101 is 5. How many nodes do I have in this? I have 1 here. How many nodes do I have in B2? I have 4 here. So if I take 101 as the representation of the binomial heap, then basically I have B2 and B0, and the total number of nodes is 5, which is exactly the value of that binary number 101. So every binary number in some sense represents a binomial heap. The number of nodes in that binary number, in that binomial heap, is exactly the same as the value of that binary number. Is that okay? So therefore we know that for any given n, you can write that n in binary form, and then you can construct the binomial heap by using that binary number, and therefore we know that for any number n, there is exactly one very unique binomial heap that I can make with just n nodes in it. Okay, And conversely, we know basically that for any binary number, for any number n, if I write it in binary form, then the number of bits that I'll have in the binary representation of that number will be log n. Okay, will be log n. If I have any number n, then the number of bits in the binary form will be log n. What that says essentially is that if I take number of nodes in a binomial heap which is n, then the number of trees in that binomial heap, number of distinct trees that I'll have in the binomial heap will be log n. Because the number of bits in the binary number is log n, therefore the number of trees that I can have also is log n. So the number of trees in a binomial heap will always be log of the number of nodes in that binomial heap. It's a very useful piece of information for me because it tells me that if I do algorithms which are going to based on the trees in the heap, then I'll have to do only log n type of number of operations. That is why it's useful. Okay. So quick question for us is, how do we implement a binomial heap? The answer is, we can implement the binomial heap using pointers, right? It's easier to implement using pointers. We like the array because normal heap we implemented using array, so that was a very nice data structure. But in this case, we have a bunch of trees, right, at the which are making up the heap. So we need pointers anyway. So we will actually make. So we need a list. So we will be using pointers. So let's say we have a binomial heap consisting of two trees. This is B1. This is B2. So B1 and B2. So if you want to write it in binary number notation, this is B2 is 1, B1 is 1, and then B0 is 0. We don't have a B0, so 0. So this is 110 in binary number notation. So 1106. 6. So this has 6 nodes. We know that. So we have put in this the key values, right? We have put some key values inside this binomial heap. So we can ask, how do we store this? The answer is that we have a bunch of trees which make up the binomial heap. So those trees can be just represented using a linked list. So here I have made for 911, I have made basically the root of 911 is 9. So for that I have made a little data structure here which has a stored key value 9, and it has 1. The 1 represents the order. So it's a order 1 binary tree, binomial tree, right? Because it is an order 1 binomial tree, therefore I put 1 here. And then I have this pointer to the next element in the list, and we will discuss these two nodes later on, right? I have pointer to the next element in the list, and this next element in the list basically has it stores the root of this binomial tree, and the root of this binomial tree has a key value which is 3, and it is a order 2 binomial tree, therefore I put the 2 over here. And this does not have a sibling, it does not have a next element in the list. So this cell over here I should make it empty, right, because it has nothing, it has no next element. So that way I can store as a list, I can store the root list of the binomial heap, the list of trees that are there in the binomial heap. How do I store the insides of the binomial tree, the insides, what is going on inside? I can use these two children now. So this first pointer is the child pointer. Now clearly there are going to be not 2 children, but there is going to be multiple children, right? Because we know that it's not a binary tree. Binomial tree is not a binary tree. So you might have k children for a node. So therefore I don't want to store k pointers here, because I don't even know how many k's are there. So I only store the pointer to the first child. Which is the first child? The leftmost child. Okay. So I am keeping a pointer to the leftmost child over here. And how do I keep the remaining children? So let's say this is the leftmost child, right? This is the leftmost child, 7 is the leftmost child. Now the remaining children, so 6 for 3, 7 is a child, 6 is also a child, 6 is the second child, so it's a sibling child to 7. So what I'll do is I will keep a pointer from 7 to 6, keep a pointer from 7 to 6. So this way I can represent a linked list of children of a node, right? So I keep a pointer to the leftmost child, and the leftmost child will point to the next child, that will point to the next child, that will point to the next child, and so on. So therefore I keep a linked list like that. And since for the root this child will not, there will be nothing, it will be empty, therefore I can use it to make the root list. The list of trees, I am using it to represent the list of trees, but for children node like 10 and 6 and so on, I am using it to represent the sibling node in the tree. Okay. So the same pointer is being used. So this way I can store this subtree inside underneath, very simple manner. And of course the parent pointer will point back to the parent. So in this case there is only 11 has the parent 9. In this case both 7 and 6 are children of 3, so therefore both of them have parent pointers pointing back to 3. So is that clear? Very simple data structure, linked list data structure. What I keep is the key value, I keep the order which I will use in the algorithm, and I will keep a sibling pointer, and I will keep first child pointer, leftmost child pointer, and I will keep a parent pointer. These are all the pointers that I keep for every node. Okay, now the question is, how do I merge two binomial heaps? Okay, there is a mistake here, I will correct it in the slide. This should not be A less than equal to B, this should be A greater than equal to B, because we said that we will put the smaller element on top. So if A is greater than B, then A should be on the left and B should be on the right. If A is less than B, A should be on the top. Okay, so this should be A greater than equal to B, so you can correct it in your slides if you have slides, otherwise make note of it, and I will anyway correct it in the course pack when it is released. Okay, so you will have the corrected version. Okay, so how do I merge binomial heaps? If I have two given heaps, right, so I have given two heaps, both the heaps have number of trees in them, right? Remember, the binomial tree is different from a binomial heap. Binomial tree is one of these, right? This is called a binomial tree. Binomial heap is a set of trees. A set of trees, it's a collection of trees. No two trees should have the same order. So if I am given two binomial heaps, inside each of these binomial heaps the trees will all have different orders. But when I merge it, when I put them together, I will find from this heap and from this heap I am taking one tree each. So I look at the trees in this heap, I look at the trees in this heap. If the trees in this heap and the trees in this heap are all of different orders, then I can just put them all together into one collection. It will be a binomial heap because they are all of different orders, so no problem. But if this tree, right, if this heap has a tree which is say of order 2 and this heap also has a tree which is of order 2, then I have now two trees of order 2 and I can't have two trees of order 2 in my heap. Therefore what should I do? I should merge these two trees. So how do I merge two trees? So here I explain how to merge two trees of the same order. In this case the order is 2. So you take the two trees, examine the root of these two trees and see which one has the smaller key. So this is A, remember this is A greater than equal to B. So therefore B, assume that this tree has the smaller key. So B is the smaller key. So if B is the smaller key, then we take the larger key root and put it underneath the smaller key. Okay, so you put this under this, and so that's how you construct a tree. Now what happened basically is I took two trees of order 2 and I put them together, and what did I get? Because of the way in which we are constructing binomial heaps, if you remember, I put two trees of order 2 together, I get a tree of order 3, isn't it? So this is a tree of order 3. Now it might be the case that both the heaps already had trees of order 3. If that were the case, I put those two trees together of order 3 and it became a tree of order 4. So if that became order 4, then basically the order 3 is vacant now, and this new order 3 tree which I got can be put there. So like this I can start from order 0. I can start with order 1, put the order 1 trees together to get order 2, put the order 2 trees to get order 3, put the order 3 trees together to put order 4, create order 4, and so on, and I can go on like this and I can create a new heap. And after I finish this process, I will basically have a heap which will have all orders which will be different. Okay, so that's the way in which you do merge. What is the complexity of this merge operation? We know basically that there are order log n trees in this heap, there is order log n trees in this heap. So the number of such operations that I have to do basically is order log n. So the complexity of doing this heap merge is order log n. Okay, so we have created an order log n merge operation, but because this is not like the previous heap, right? So the previous heap, the min was very easy to do because there was only one tree. I just have to find the minimum is the root, so I just find the root and I'm done. Here now if I want to find the minimum, what do I have to do? I have now a heap which has a lot of trees in them, right? One for each order maybe. So therefore I may have order log n trees in my heap. So to find the min, I have to look at all these trees which are there in the heap and find out which one is the minimum. So if you just look, for example, at, let's say, look at this heap, right? So 9, 11 and 3, 7, 10, 6. So suppose this is a heap and I want to find the min. So I find that in this tree the minimum is 9, which I can easily extract because this is a heap from which I can extract the minimum. It's just the root of this heap, of this tree. for this tree again, if I want to find the minimum, I just look at the root of this tree and I see that it's 3. So I can compare the minimum of this and this, and I find that this minimum is less, so I take this as the minimum. So in order to find the minimum of a heap, I will take the minimum of all the trees in the heap and I take the minimum of that. Okay, I take the minimum of each tree in the heap, and whichever is the, out of all of those minimums, whichever is the least, I take that minimum out. So what is the complexity of doing that? There are order log n trees in the heap, and each heap to find the minimum is a constant time operation, because I have to just look at the root of the heap, root of the tree, so that is a constant time operation. So I have order log n trees, each of them I am doing constant time operation, so the total complexity is order log n. Okay, so in order log n time I can find the minimum of the tree, and if I want to extract the min, which means I found the min, let's say this is the min, I want to extract it, which means I want to delete this node, then how do I do that? So to delete a node, what I do is, very simple thing I do, cut this tree at this node. When you cut this tree, we know basically the tree was constructed from trees of smaller order, right? So when you cut this tree, those smaller order trees all fall apart like this, it falls like this apart. So each of these you can take, and these become individual trees in the binomial heap. So to delete a node, just cut that node, right? Delete a node, just cut that node from the heap, cut from the tree in which to which it belongs. When you cut that node, that particular tree will break down into small trees like this. Take these 3 trees and add these 3 trees to a heap. Now when you add these 3 trees to a heap, it may turn out that the heap already has a tree of order 2. If it has, then you merge this with that particular tree in the heap. So by doing merge operation, which we already saw is order log n, so you take this heap which has 3 trees in it and merge it with the heap which you already have, right, minus this tree. So from the heap you remove this tree, from your given heap you remove this tree, break this node, so you will get these 3 trees, make a heap with these 3 trees and merge this heap with these 3 trees with the original heap minus this tree, and that merge operation is going to be order log n. So though I described it in English, I think you can understand what we are doing here. All we are doing basically is we are finding out where the minimum lies, cutting that node out, then that tree breaks down into small trees. Those small trees basically may create duplication in order for some of the trees, so then you merge those trees, and the result of merging basically is going to be the resulting heap. And we know that that merging operation is order log n, therefore the delete operation is also order log n. So we can see basically that the make heap is order 1, insert, make heap means make an empty heap is order 1, insert is an order log n operation, right? How do you do insert? How do you do insert? To insert a node into a heap, you just take that node and add it to the heap. Let's say we have a heap, like say these 2 heaps are there, I want to insert a node, so I want to insert 5 into the heap, so I put 5 here, and since 5 is of order 0, this is of order 1 and this is of order 2, therefore there is no duplication of order, and therefore that is the resulting heap. So you make a node, take the node that you want to insert and put it into the heap. If you find that there is already a node with order 0 in it, then you merge it with that node, you will create a tree of order 1. If there is a tree already of order 1, you merge it with that tree, you will create a tree of order 2, you take that tree of order 2, if there is already another tree of order 2, you merge it with that, and so on, keep merging till you have finished all the merges, and the result will be your final heap. And you know basically that the complexity of merge is order log n, therefore inserting is also order log n. So we see basically insert is log n, finding the minimum is log n, because you have to look at all the trees in the heap and look at their minimum and compare it to find the minimum. Extract min is log n, because to extract min you will just delete the minimum node, the tree breaks down into smaller trees, you take those smaller trees and merge it, right, with the existing heap. Union is log n, and decrease key also is log n, which I am not discussing here, but we will discuss it shortly when we do Fibonacci heaps, but decrease key also is log n. Decrease key means you can take any node and decrease its key value. You can see that that can be done by just doing delete and insert. So to decrease a key, you can just delete the existing key and reinsert the key with the decreased key value. So that is the way to decrease the key. Slightly more complicated than the binomial heap, but if you understand binomial heap, you should be able to understand Fibonacci heap. Same method is used, okay, same method is used in Fibonacci heap as well. Now why do we need, firstly let me motivate, why do we need the Fibonacci heap at all? Okay, why do we need it? The answer is that we need a Fibonacci heap primarily because sometimes you do this operation called extract min and decrease key many times. I'm going to motivate this with, and you know, in the last class, at the end of the last class, there was a question which I did not answer, deliberately did not answer, very good question that was asked. How do we use priority queues in Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm? It was asked and I did not answer it. I don't know who asked it, but I did not answer it then because we are going to discuss it now, right? So Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm in a graph. Basically, if you have a graph and you want to find the shortest path from a node, let's say A to a node B, then the way the shortest path algorithm works, we discussed a bit of it in the last class, is it says it keeps a list of nodes which are unvisited. Initially only A is unvisited, A is visited and all other nodes are unvisited. Then from the what it will do is, if A is visited, it will mark the distance from A to the neighbors. So the distance from A to D is 200 meters, so it put 200 on D. The distance from A to C is 120 meters, so it put 120 on C. Okay, so it marked D and C with the distance from A, and then now we have all these unvisited nodes. From these unvisited nodes, it picks the node with which is the least key. So you find basically that these are all infinity, and only D is marked with 200 and C is marked with 120. So therefore it picks the smaller of the two, which is C, 120, and it marks C as visited. So at this point in my algorithm, I have marked A and C, I have colored A and C as blue, which means A and C are visited, and the unvisited nodes are D, F, E and B. And now what it will do basically is, since I visited C, it will update the distance from C to the neighbor. So from C you find that the C's distance is 120, the distance from C to F is 350. So the distance to F via C, ACF in other words, is 120 plus 350, which is 470. So it put 470 on F. Okay. So at this point in time we have nodes E and B which have not yet been visited, are marked infinity, D and F which have not yet been visited. Okay, only the distances have been marked, not yet visited. Distances are marked as 200 and 470. C is already visited, A is already visited. At this point what it will do is it will try to find out what is the node among all the nodes that have not been visited, which means among D, E, F, B, which node has the least key value. Turns out that D is the one which has the least key value, which is 200. So it will take D and it will mark it as visited, it will remove it from the list of unvisited nodes. So it marks D as visited. Okay, I made it blue. We removed it from the list of unvisited nodes. So we are maintaining a list of unvisited nodes. It was initially C, D, E, F, B, then it became D, E, F, B, then it became E, F, B because we extracted D from it. Okay, so they are maintaining a list of unvisited nodes, finding from that list of unvisited nodes the minimum key value, extracting it. That's why we are doing what we call extract min operation, extracting it. So we remove D from, first we removed C, now we are going to remove D, and after removing D, what do? We update the distance value for all its neighbors. So two neighbors it has, E and F. So we update the distance value of F. So F had a distance value of 470 written on it. We want to update it. What do we update it to? What is the distance via D? So the distance to D is 200. The distance from D to F is 150. So the distance via D is 200 plus 150, which is 350. Now 350 happens to be less than 470. So what do? We do an operation which is called a decrease key operation. So we take the key of F, which was right now 470, and we decrease it to 350. Okay, we decrease it to 350. So like that. So E had a key value of infinity. So the distance now is 200 plus 150, 350. So you decrease the key value of E to 350 like this. So when we do Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm, when you try to find the shortest path using this algorithm from A to B, you do two operations. One is called extract min, which means find the minimum value and take it out from the list of unvisited nodes, and the second is decrease key, which means take the node which you have extracted and find all its neighbors. For all its neighbors, do a decrease key, reduce the distance to that node. If it is shorter, if there is a shorter path via this node, then reduce the distance. Like we found earlier, path was ACF, which had a distance of 470. We found a shorter path to F via D, ADF, shorter than ACF. So we updated the distance to F as 350. Okay, So we do a decrease key operation to reduce the distance shortest path of up to the node F, because we found a shorter path to F. So greedy algorithms typically, as we have shown here, for shortest path, and generally will basically do two things. One will do extract min, and the other it will do decrease key. It will keep doing this, right? And so when you have to do a multiple number of extract mins and decrease keys, this whatever heap structure we created, which is binomial heap or even original heap we had, is not efficient, because each decrease key operation will change the min value. So you have to bubble, so the heap is damaged, and so you have to bubble the heap, the minimum value up the heap. So you have to heapify up. So a heapify up operation we know takes log n. So if you do m decrease mins, decrease keys, and for every node that we extract min we do for D might have m neighbors, where m is the number of edges, right? It may have as many as m neighbors. So order m neighbors. So if it has order m neighbors, then you will do m times log n operations, decrease key operations. So every extract min is accompanied by m times log n decrease key operations, and so the number of decrease keys that you will do is phenomenal. Operations, the number of complexity of decrease key will become very phenomenal, and your greedy algorithm will start becoming very slow, because you are spending a lot of time in decrease key. Okay, so that is why what you want to do basically is you want to create a data structure in which not just extract min is reduced in terms of complexity, but decrease key also is reduced in terms of complexity. Ideally, you would like to do the decrease key in constant time, ideally. It turns out that in the worst case it's not possible to do that, okay, but it is possible to do it in what is called the amortized case or average case. Now we don't have time to discuss average case and amortized case complexity study in this class, but I am hoping that it either through other lectures that you have studied in this course that you are doing, or out of your own interest you may study amortized case. Surely you have looked at quicksort, for example. You know that quicksort in the worst case is order n square, but in the average case quicksort does extremely well. In fact, majority of the sorting that is done in the world, for when you have to sort a number of elements, they use quicksort, because the average case complexity of quicksort is very, very good. So average case or amortized case complexity of Fibonacci heap, which I am going to introduce to you, basically is very small. It's constant time for many of the operations. Only extract min and delete, right? Delete and extract min basically are log n. Everything else is constant time in a Fibonacci heap. In the average case, worst case is very bad for Fibonacci heap, right? Which we will study through a tutorial problem in tomorrow's class. But the average case is very good, okay? And usually average case is good enough for us. So with that introduction, let me explain to you what a Fibonacci heap is in brief, okay? I am saying in brief because I am going to cut short a lot of proofs and other things because we don't have time. You can study this on your own. I mean, it's not difficult to study it, but I will give you an indication of how it works, this Fibonacci heap. Fibonacci heap is very much like binomial heap in the sense that Fibonacci heap and binomial heap, both of them are collection of trees, okay? The collection of trees. The difference is that in a binomial heap you have binomial trees, each of which is of a different order, right? Order. But here we are not using that kind of order. Here we use, for us in this one, the term order will refer to in a Fibonacci heap will refer to the number of children, right? Even in a binomial heap, the number of children of the root represents the order in some sense. A degree 3 node, if it is the root of the binomial tree, then the tree will be of order 3, right? So the degree, which means the number of children, and the order, the definitions can coincide. But anyway, so here we can see we have created a binomial, created a Fibonacci heap which consists of more than one node of the same order or degree. So you have 23 or 7, both of them are order or degree 0, which means they have no children, right? So the degree 0. Here this one has degree 3, which means it has 3 children. This one has 1 child, this one has 2 children, this is of order 2, this is of order 1, this is order 3, and both these are of order 0. So we are allowing more than one tree in some sense to be having the same order in a Fibonacci heap. So then you basically keep, these are the trees that you are keeping in the Fibonacci heap. That is the first way in which Fibonacci heap is different from binomial heap, okay? that we are allowing more than one tree to have the same order in the heap. The second way in which they are different is that there is no notion of left child and the right child and all that stuff. You just, it doesn't matter, it's unordered, okay. So whereas in the binomial heap, you remember we said basically that the leftmost, so you basically the leftmost child is where the, you copied the previous, when you merge two heaps, when you merge two trees, you took one tree and made it the leftmost child of the other tree. Here we are not going to do that, right? There is no leftmost child and all that, that's the other thing. So this is, trees are unordered and they don't have to have, you can have duplicate trees with the same order size in the Fibonacci heap. So how do we store the Fibonacci heap? Basically we store the Fibonacci heap by keeping a doubly linked list. I am not showing it because to show a doubly linked list you will need a lot of diagram you have to show, but this dotted line, think about it like a doubly linked list. What's a doubly linked list? 23 is linked to 7, is linked to 3, is linked to 17, is linked to 24. It's circular, which means 24 is linked back to 23. But you also have a reverse link, 24 to 17 to 3 to 7 to 23, and 23 links back to 24. Okay. So there is a circular linked list in both directions at the root or the root of the trees. And for the children also we make circular linked list which connects the children. So 3's children are 18, 52 and 38 and they form a circular linked list. 24's two children are 26 and 46 form a circular linked list. So this is how you implement the Fibonacci heap, by using circular linked lists, right? Of in the case of the heap itself, all the roots are connected by doubly linked list, and for the children of the root. How do you insert a node? If I want to insert a node 11 into the Fibonacci heap, just because I am allowed to do duplicates, I just put 11 as one of the elements in the root list of the Fibonacci heap. Just put it here, that's it, okay, done. Because now I had already two nodes with order 0, I have one more node with order 0, any number is allowed. So you can just put it, it's very simple to insert, which is why insert is constant time for Fibonacci heap, okay. How do I do extract min? Which is combination of extract, selecting the minimum and deleting. Firstly, I have to find the minimum of the root nodes of the Fibonacci heap. To make this finding the minimum easy, what is done is that the Fibonacci heap always keeps a pointer to the minimum, okay. It keeps a pointer to the minimum always. Otherwise you have to search, and this could be order n, so that is complicated. So that's why you keep a pointer to the minimum always. So since you know what the pointer to the minimum is, you can take out 3 and now you want to delete, it's extract, so you want to delete 3. So when you delete 3, this pointer to minimum has to point somewhere. Temporarily I'll make min point to the next element after 3, right, so make it point to 17. But clearly 17 is not the minimum, so this is not over, I have to do more work to find out the minimum and all. So I have removed 3, made minimum point to 17 temporarily because I have to make it point somewhere. Now because I removed 3, these 3 nodes are dangling, 18, 52 and 38 are dangling nodes, and underneath them there are children. What do I do with these orphans, dangling nodes? I just take these 3 nodes and put them in the root list. Okay, so I just made 18, 52 and 38 part of the root list. So now I have basically 23, 7, 18, 52, 38, 17, 24 on the root list, min pointing to 17. This tree is not correct because min is not pointing in the right place. Okay. Also, if you keep doing this, what will happen is the whole tree will eventually become flat. You will just have a bunch of nodes in one list, and it will not be a, it will be a linked list. It will not be a tree at all. Okay, there is no hope of doing any operation in order, log n time and all that. So we need to do something to make this tree better. So the operation that we do is something called consolidate. Okay, this consolidate operation. What is consolidate? Now we start trying to merge, just like binomial heap. What we did, we'll try to merge trees which are of the same order. How do I do that? I start with the minimum node and go right. So from 17 I'll go right, I'll go to 24. I know 17 has order 1, which means number of children is 1. 24 has order 2, means number of children is 2. So right now one tree I found with order 1, one tree I found with order 2, they are distinct, so no problem. Then I go around the heap, go around like this, circular linked list, remember, so I am going right. 17, 24, circular linked, come to 23. 23, what is the order? 0. So now I have 1, I have 2, I have 0, all are different, so no problem. Then I come to 7, what is the 7th order? 7th order is 0. Now for the first time I found 2 nodes with the same order. When I find two nodes with the same order, what do? I merge them. How do I merge them? Take the one with smaller key, make it the parent of the other one. Just like binomial heap. So put 23 under 7. When I put 23 under 7, 7's order becomes 1. Now what do I have? I have one node with order 1, one node with order 2, another node with order 1. So two nodes with order 1. So what should I do? Merge the two nodes with order 1. How do I merge? Take the smaller of the two, 7 and 17. 7 is smaller. So take 7 and make it the parent of 17. So put 17 under 7. Okay. So that is what I have done here, right? Put 17 under 7. So I took 1730 and put it under 7. So we got like this. When I did this, what will happen? 7's order becomes 2. So now I have one node with order 2, another node with order 2, two nodes with order 2. So what should I do? I should merge these two nodes of order 2. Okay. So I have one node with order 2, another node with order 2. How do I merge? 7 is the smaller key. So put 24 under 7. So 24 went under 7. Very similar to binomial heap. Very similar to binomial heap. Okay. So I put 24 under 7. Only thing is there is no order or anything. It doesn't have to be left child. Anywhere it can be. Okay. So 24 went under 7. That's all. So now 7 became order 3. And now 7 is order 3. And in my so far whatever I have collected so far, there are no duplicates. So I can go right again. 18 as order 1, 52 as order 2, 38 as order 1. So I have two nodes of order 1. So 18 and 38. So I have to put 38 under 18. Right. Both of them are order 1. So I put 38 under 18. So I get like this. So now I have all three nodes have different orders, and similar to in the binomial heap case, when all the three are different order, we can stop. So we stop. So this is how the Fibonacci heap works. So when you do any operation, you don't do anything. You just take all the things and put it in the root list. But when you extract the minimum, because you know they'll do extract min and then you'll do decrease key, right? You do extract minimum, you basically do a tree consolidate, which means you consolidate means that you take trees which have the same order and you merge them, right? And so that's how you get this Fibonacci heap, right? By consolidation. So what is the number of operations that you will do? Number of operations that you will do in consolidate is proportional to the number of trees, because you are examining all the trees. So number of trees plus, you know, it's the size of the maximum degree, right? Because you have to examine all the children, so therefore size of maximum degree. I won't explain this in more detail because we don't have time, but you can show, and I'm not going to show you, you can show, which means that you should read the proof yourself. Okay, you can see the proof that the average number of trees in a Fibonacci heap, the amortized or average number of trees in a Fibonacci heap is order log n, and the maximum degree that you will get in a Fibonacci heap is also order log n. Therefore, the number of consolidate operations on the average, not worst case. Worst case it might be order n, the worst case, right? But in the average case, the number of operations is order log n. Okay. How do you do decrease key, which is the one that we wanted to do? Decrease key basically means that, let's say for example, I have this heap and I want to decrease the key of 26 to 20. So if I decrease the key of 26 to 20, this heap is damaged because 20's parent is larger, 24, it should be smaller, right? So the heap is damaged. So what do? I just cut the tree over here, and 2035 I put it in the root list. So I just decrease the key 26 to 20, I cut off the 2035 and put it in the root list, because otherwise it will be damaged, because 20 will be below 24, which is not allowed. That's why I cut it and put it in the root list. Okay. So what we do when we decrease the key basically is you cut out the node below that key and put it in the root list. And there is another rule which we have, which is this interesting rule, right, which says that any parent whose both children have been cut out should also be cut out. And you know, if you see the proof of Fibonacci heap, how it works, that order log n, what I discussed earlier, this is a very key step in the proof, is that we do this operation which says that, say for example, I now decrease the key of 46 to 22. So which means when 46 is decreased to 22, what should I do? I cut out 46 and put it in the root list, right? So 46 becomes 22 and 22 goes in the root list. But because of this rule which says if a parent, both the nodes are gone, then see 24, one node has gone, we cut out 26 already. Because now we are cutting out 46, which is the second child, Therefore 24, both the children are gone. So any node whose both children are gone, that node is also cut out. So basically what we have done is 20 got cut out because the decrease key we did, 46 got cut out, I should have written 22 here, sorry. 46 got cut out because we did decrease key on this and made it 22, but 24 also got cut out, okay, because both its children got cut out. And I won't prove it to you, but this operation of cutting out a parent whose both children are cut out ensures that the number of nodes in the Fibonacci heap will be growing at the rate of the Fibonacci number, okay, which is why it's called Fibonacci heap. The rate at which the Fibonacci heap number of nodes grows in a Fibonacci heap, in a Fibonacci tree, basically is the Fibonacci number. It grows like the Fibonacci number, which is exponential, and therefore the height of the Fibonacci heap will be log n, and the number of trees therefore you will get is also log n, and therefore basically the complexity is log n. Unfortunately I can't prove this to you because we don't have time, right, we are already running a bit late, but this thing you can try and see the proof yourself. Okay, so what have we shown so far? We started with a binary heap. We said let's look at binomial heap. The binomial heap is better than binary heap for merge, so it does things in log n time. And then we looked at this thing called the Fibonacci heap, which allows you to do a bunch of decrease key operations, right, in order one time, which means in constant time you can do decrease key. So whenever you are doing greedy algorithms like Dijkstra's algorithm, the data structure that you may want to use to do efficient Dijkstra is Fibonacci heap, okay. So that is a summary of this first part. Now some of you might have found this to be too difficult, right, and maybe it's not there even in your syllabus, but it's a useful thing for you to know that heap is just a starting point. Starting with the concept of heap, you can build all kinds of interesting derived data structures like binomial heap, Fibonacci heap, and many other kinds of heaps, and each of these heap data structures do some operations very efficiently, okay. Now with that, maybe I can take one question, okay, or two questions. How binary heaps differ from binomial heaps is one question, okay. Now we know, basically I told you that binomial heap is not binary because it has multiple, each tree in the binomial heap has it's not a binary tree, it may have degree k, right, it may have k children, the root of that may have k children. So binomial heap is very different from a binary tree, right. Binomial heap contains binomial trees, and the binomial trees are not binary trees, okay, and the operations on the binomial heap also are very different from what you do on the binary heap. Binary heap, the operations that we did were insert, delete, and we said basically that we can store it as an array. Insert means you put it at the end and do this heapify up, and to delete, you delete the node by swapping the end of the array to the top of the array and heapify down and all that. So we are doing completely different types of operations in a binomial heap. So it's a very different data structure, right, than a binary heap. Okay, so with that I want to get into the next topic, which is binary search trees. So we will do as much as we can in today's class, and then I can continue in tomorrow's class. So I can give you enough time to ask questions on binary search tree, because this is a very important data structure. Just like heaps is a very important data structure, binary search tree is yet another very, very useful data structure that is very, very widely used in many computer applications. Now I want to motivate binary search tree, okay. Why do we need binary search trees? So in order to motivate it, I am going to give you a simple use case where we need to do an operation called successor and another operation called predecessor, and these operations we can't do with heaps, okay. So that is why I am going to explain we need another data structure, right. So in order to say why we need successor and predecessor, consider this example. I explained to you that priority queue, one of the applications is flights are arriving into an airport. The airport needs to give runway time to the flights that are coming in, so it takes the flight which is nearby, closest, and it gives it runway time. Then it takes the flight which is next nearest and gives it runway time, and so on. So it is using a priority queue where the priority value or key value is the remaining time to reach the airport, right? So the lowest key value, which means the lowest remaining time to reach the airport, is the one that is used to pick the flight to which landing time is to be given. Okay, so assume for a moment that flight landing takeoff requests are coming at different times. So I just picked this from the timetable of Chennai airport. So there is a Trivandrum Chennai Air India flight 4:23 p.m. Chennai Madurai SpiceJet 4:12 p.m. Chennai Delhi Chennai Air India 4:55 p.m. Port Blair Chennai Jet Airways 4:18 p.m. These are the 4 requests that have come in. I can put these 4 requests in a heap. So I can put these 4 requests, I can put all these requests like this in a heap. From the heap I can take out the minimum value 4:12 p.m. and whichever flight that is, I can give him control and say, okay, you can now land on the airstrip. Once 4:12 is extracted, which means removed, the next minimum 4:18 is the next minimum, will be bubbled up to the top of the heap, and I can give 4:18 p.m. flight. I can give him the the thing to land. I can give him the thing to land or take off or whatever. So this is very easy to do. But suppose I want to add a new rule. Let's say that a few minutes before the minimum, let's say at 4:10, this is given. Okay, suppose I want to add a new rule. And the new rule says that suppose there is a flight which has taken off at 4:12 p.m. I don't want another flight to land or take off at 4:13 p.m. because what happens is if the one flight is taking off 4:12 p.m. another flight is also taking off at 4:13 p.m. There is a danger that this second flight may collide with the first flight, right? So you may want to make sure that the flights are separated out by a reasonable amount of air time. Now typically this air time is in the order of seconds in airports, but good very high density airports, in 30 seconds maybe the separation between 2 flights. But let's say for a moment that we want to separate it by 2 or 3 minutes. So we see basically that 4:12, the next flight is at 4:18, separated by 6 minutes. So if I want to separate it by 3 minutes, let's say between 2 flights, this is well spaced. But there are flights which are not well placed, right? So here there is 4:53 p.m. flight is sitting here, and I have kept another flight here. I have given him landing time of I have kept this flight 4:55 p.m. landing time. So these 2 flights are not within 3 minutes, right? They are not separated by 3 minutes. They are only 2 minutes away from each other. So there is a potential danger that you give this guy 4:53 and you give this guy 4:55. This 4:55 might collide with this 4:53 and you may have some serious problem. So suppose I want to ensure that I don't allow 2 flights to be given time which is less than 3 minutes between each other. Okay. So how do I do that? In order to do that, right now I have to search this whole tree. When I am inserting 4:53, I have to search this whole tree to see whether there is any other node sitting there with values 454, 455, 456, 452, 451, 450. I have to search, right? So that search is order n time. It's going to take long time. So how do I do it without doing order n time? Okay, can I do it faster? In fact, can I do it in order constant time or order log n time, right? Can I do it? The answer is that you could do it if you had this operation called predecessor and successor. Okay, so predecessor basically says what is the node before with value which is just before. So 4:18's predecessor is 4:12. 4:18's successor is 4:23. 4:23's successor or the time after that is 4:43. 4:53's successor is 4:55. So if I could find the predecessor and successor of every node, then all I need to do basically is to check that the distance between a node and its successor and the distance between a node and its predecessor is at least 3. Then I am safe. Okay, I need to do that. But problem is that finding predecessor and successor in a heap takes order n time. That's the problem, because the heap is not designed for predecessor and successor. Heap is designed for minimum or maximum, right, depending on which one you choose, right? You can store it in minimum order or maximum order. So you can do that. But if you want to find predecessor or successor, that takes order n time in a heap. Okay. So what operation do I do? So you can see basically that predecessor successor works well in a sorted array. If I had a sorted array, I can find the predecessor of a node very easily, because just take the previous element to that element, that is the predecessor. Successor also is very easy, look at the next element. So sorted array finds predecessor and successor in constant time, and it can find the minimum quickly, but insert and delete, it's very bad, sorted array, right? Whereas the heap is doing insert delete very well, but predecessor and successor it's doing badly. So I need something better than a heap, right? So you remember end of last class I told you that the heap is an interesting data structure because it's not as sorting everything to the full extent like a sorted array, but it's not keeping everything unsorted also. So it's an array, but the array is stored in a very interesting order which is called the heap order. It's not fully sorting it, it's not unsorting it, it's not keeping it unsorted, because it's partially sorting it, therefore you can do insert, delete and all fast, okay. If you are fully sorted it, then insert will take time. So you are not fully sorting it, you are keeping it partially sorted, and because it's partially sorted, you are able to do insert, delete very fast, and you are able to find minimum very fast. So the heap is a very interesting sort order of the array, right? Very interesting way you kept it. But that interesting way is not good enough for us for doing predecessor and successor. So we need to do something more than a heap, but still we don't want to do like sorted array, because sorted array will make insert and delete costly, right? So I don't want to make insert and delete costly, I want to do order log n insert delete. So how do I do something more than a heap but not as much as sorted array? That's the next question. The answer to that is binary search tree. Binary search tree will allow you to do predecessor and successor, insert, delete, maximum, minimum, and search all of these in log n time. Very simple data structure, binary search tree. It's a binary tree first of all. So basically every node has at most two children, Some nodes can have one child, some nodes may have no children. If the node has no children, it's called a leaf. If the node has one child, right, that child can be either the left or right child. Remember, in the heap, the only one node in the heap is allowed to have a single child, and that child has to be the left child of the parent. But in a binary tree, binary search tree, you may have many nodes with one child, and it's not necessary that the children should be left child, could be right child, okay. But we have a specific rule for binary search tree, and that rule is very strong rule. It says that every node x in the tree, right, the key value of that node should be greater than or equal to the key value of all the nodes in its left subtree, okay, and its key value should be less than or equal to all the nodes in its right subtree. So in some sense, if you take a node in the binary search tree, if you go to the left of that node, you will only find key values which are less than this key value or less than or equal to, and if you go to the right of this node, you will only find nodes with values, key values which are greater than or equal to, okay. So the binary search tree orders insists on more more structure in terms of the key value order, okay, than what the heap does. Heap only says that as I go up the tree, the key value should decrease. It does not say for a node that its left child should have a smaller key value or the right child should have a greater key value or something. It doesn't say anything about the order of the left or right child, okay. It only says that the children of the node in the heap should always have a key value greater than or equal to the parent. That's all it says. Whereas here we are saying something about the left child and the right child. We are saying left child is always less than or equal to the key, and right child is always greater than or equal to the key of the node. So you can see this is ordered like that. So if you take this node, it's 5. All the nodes to the left subtree, 3, 2, 5 are in the left subtree. They are all having key values less than or equal to 5, and its right subtree 7 or 8 has key values which is greater than or equal to 5, okay. Similarly 3, right, its left subtree has key value which is 2, which is less than or equal to 3, and its right subtree has 5, which is greater than or equal to 3. Now one thing we can immediately note is that there is no one unique binary search tree, right. So this is a binary search tree which stores it in the binary search tree order. This is also a binary search tree which is having that order, right. So here also there is no left subtree, all these nodes are in the right subtree, and you can see that everything in the right subtree is greater than or equal to 2. 7's right subtree is 8, greater than or equal to 7. 7's left subtree has 2 5s less than or equal to 7. So the same nodes 2, 3, 5, 5, 5, 7, 8 can be stored in a binary search tree either like this or in many other different ways. You can store it in many ways. I can just make, for example, a chain 2 to the right of it 3, to the right of it 5, to the right of it 5, to the right of it 7, right of it 8. That's also a binary search tree. Or I can make a left leaning tree, start with 8, then go to 7, then go to 5, then go to 5, then go to 3, then go to 2. That's also a binary search tree. So there are many ways of making binary search tree with the same nodes. Okay, like there are many ways of making heap also with the same nodes, right? Same way. But only thing is that whereas in the heap the structure, the shape of the heap will look the same. If you give me n is equal to 12, there's only one shape that the heap will have, whereas here for n equal to 12 I can have many shapes. That's the difference. Okay, how do I implement a binary search tree? I can't use an array, I use pointers. So every node has the key field and it has left child pointer and has a right child pointer, and since there are only 2 children you only need 2 pointers, and it has a parent pointer to the parent. So you have the key value which is 5, you have a left child pointer, you have a right child pointer, and 5 has no parent, that's why this is null. 3 on the other hand has a parent pointer pointing to 5. So very simple, just keep the key value, left child, right child and parent pointers for every node, and that list which you will make, that kind of pointer based data structure that you will make is a binary search tree. Remember that you need to keep the key values in a specific order for it to be a binary search tree. What I have created is a binary search tree data structure, but if the key is not stored in the right order, it will not be a BST. Okay, so it has to be a BST, means it has to be in the right order. Now one way to check whether or not the thing is stored in BST order is by doing this thing on the tree which is called the in order tree walk. Okay. Now in order tree walk, basically what it does is it walks down the tree in a specific way. In order tree walk of a node will first visit the left subtree of the node. After visiting the left subtree of the node, it will visit the node. After visiting the node, it will visit the right subtree of the node. Okay, that's called in order tree walk. First visit the left subtree, then the node, then the right subtree. If there is no left subtree, start with the node, then go to the right subtree. If there is no right subtree, left subtree, then node, then finished. Okay, that's how it works. Now when you visit the node, you need to do some work on the node. Right now the only work I am doing on the node is printing the value of the node, key value of the node. So I visit the left subtree, then I visit the node. When I visit the node, the work I am doing is printing the key, then I visit the right subtree. Now it's easy to see that in order tree walk on a binary search tree, which means that a tree in which the keys are stored in binary search tree order will produce the list of elements in sorted order. Okay, let's see how that works. Suppose we have this tree. I want to do in order tree walk, which means I start with this node 5. So first I should visit left subtree. So left subtree means go to this tree rooted at 3 and do an in order tree walk of this. In order to do in order tree walk of 2, what do? I go to its left subtree, which is here. Okay, so go here. In order to do in order tree walk of this, what do? I go to its left subtree. There is no left subtree, so nothing to do. So I come to the next statement, which is print key. So print 2. Okay, print 2. Then what does it say next? Next it says go to the right subtree. There is no right subtree for 2. There is nothing to do. So once you have finished right subtree, what should I do? I should return back to the previous node. Remember I came to 2 from 3. So I go back to 3. So I finished in order tree walk of the left child of 3. I finished the in order tree walk of 2. So once I finish that, then I print. What do? I visit the node 3. So visit the node 3 basically means print the value of 3. So print 3. And then after that I go to the next statement which says in order tree walk the right child of 3. So in order tree walk the right child of 3 is 5. 5's left child is empty. Print 5. Go to the right child of 5 which is empty. Come back. Come back means go to the place where you started from, which is 5. From 5 I came here. I finished left child of 5. Now I have to print 5. So I print 5 and then I go to the right child of 5, which is 7. No left child for 7, so print 7. Okay. Then go to the right child of 7, which is 8. No left child for 8, so print 8. Then go to the right child of 8, nothing. Don't come back, exit. Okay. So what have I got? 2, 3, 5, 5, 7, 8. So that's the sorted order of the elements. So an in order tree walk of the tree, binary search tree, will produce the elements which are stored in the binary search tree in sorted order. This particular procedure, in-order tree walk, is used for many proofs that are done in binary search tree. So you have to remember it very carefully, see what is going on, okay. In fact, one of the problems that you will get in your exam or somewhere is basically how to convert a recursive, this is a recursive program, right, what you have written, into a iterative program, and that requires, if you want to convert this into iterative program, it requires you understand how this in-order tree walk works actually, what is going on in the in-order tree walk. So let's I will explain to you a little bit later what's going on, but before I do that, let me also talk about two other ways in which the tree walks can be done. The other way in which you can do a tree walk is what is called pre-order tree walk. So pre-order tree walk says, remember in order what you said, visit left subtree, visit the node, then go to the right subtree. In pre-order on the other hand, what you say is first visit the node, finish the node work first, then go to the left subtree, then go to the right subtree. So what is the work on the node? Print the key. You could do anything, right? So right now I am only printing the key. So print the key, then go to the left subtree, then go to the right subtree, right? That's what this is saying. So if I do this, then what will be printed is, I will print 5 first, then go to the left subtree. So left subtree, first I will print the node. So print 3, then go to the left subtree. So print 2, nothing further to do. So come back, go to the right subtree, print 5, then come back, go to the right subtree, print 7, nothing to do, come back, go to the right subtree, 8. So you see the order when you print in pre-order is 5, 3, 2, 5, 7, 8. Print the node first, then the left subtree, then the right subtree, okay. Where is it useful? We will see very shortly that pre-order tree walk is useful in doing search of the binary search tree. It's useful in many places, useful to do search. The other way to do search walk of the tree is what's called post-order tree walk. Post-order means, remember in order basically said go to the left, then do the node, then go to the right. Pre-order said do the node, then do the left, then do the right. Post-order says on the other hand, do the left, do the right, then do the node, okay. So do the left first, do the right, then the node. So if I have to do left first, I go to the left. So to do the left, basically I again do the left first, so I do 2 first, then I do the right, so I do a 5, then I come to the node. So I do 3, then I do the right, so I do 7, then to do 7 I do the left, I do the right, so I do 8, then I come here, then I do 7, then I come here, I do 5. So you see that in post order you will do the node last, right, do 5 last. When is it useful? We already saw in the last class, I explained abstract data types, I explained tree abstract data type. So this is useful basically to evaluate expressions, for example. So suppose this was an expression tree. If I want to evaluate the expression, I should evaluate its arguments before evaluating the expression itself. So I have to evaluate the left subtree, I have to evaluate the right subtree, then apply the operator over here, then only I can evaluate this particular node. So post order tree walk is useful when we are doing expression evaluation as an example, but useful in many other cases as well. So there are 3 kinds of ways to walk the tree: in order, pre-order and post order. Most of the time for proof of binary search tree we will be using the in order tree walk, okay, we will be using the in order tree walk, and that one basically will go left, then do the node, then do the right. So let's look at the search procedure. Suppose I want to search for a particular node in a binary search tree. How do I do that? So let's say K is the node key that I am searching for in a binary search tree. So how do I search? I say, okay, let's say I want to search for 5. I want to search for 5 in a binary search tree. There are 2 places 5 is there, okay. So if I want to search for 5 in a binary search tree, I start with the root, I find 5, answer is I have found the node over, okay, I found the node. Suppose I want to search for 2 in a binary search tree. How do I do that? I start with 5, I compare the given key is 2, I compare 2 with 5. I find that 2 is less than 5. So we know that in a binary search tree, the key value of the left subtree will always be less than the key value of a node, and the key value of the right subtree will always be greater than key value of a node, which means that if I found 2 which is less than 5, then I know that 2 must lie only in the left subtree, it can't lie in the right subtree. So it's like binary search in an array, right? Like in binary search, when you sorted the array, you know basically that any element to the left of it will be elements below it, to the right of it will be elements greater than it. So here I maintained it in the form of a tree. All the subtree, the elements in the left subtree are all less than, and all the elements in the right subtree are greater than. So I know that 2 is less than 5, therefore it should lie in the left subtree. So I go to the left. Now I compare it with 3, I find that 2 is less than 3. So what does it tell me? It tells me that it should be in the left subtree. So I go left. Now this node has key value 2, I have given key value is 2, therefore I found the node. So I found it. So on the other hand, if I am searching for 8, for example, I will start with 5, I find 8 is greater than 5, so I go right. Again I find 8 which is greater than 7, so I go right and I find 8. So very simple, searching a tree is like binary search. Compare the given key with the node. If you find that it's less than the node, go to the left. If you find it greater than the node, go to the right. And that's what I have written here. Okay. You can write that also in iterative form very easily. If you found it already, then you return it. Otherwise, basically what you do is, if it's less, then you set the pointer to the left, otherwise set the pointer to the right. X is the pointer that you are moving in the tree, and keep searching, okay, till you find the end. Okay, so having done search, the next question that we can ask is, how do you find the minimum in a tree, binary search tree? Okay, how do you find the minimum in a binary search tree? How do you find the minimum in a binary search tree? Remember, binary search tree, the root node is not the minimum. Okay, in a heap, the root node will be the minimum. Binary search tree, the root node is not the minimum. Okay, because the root node, the property of the root node is that it should have a key value where it is greater than the key value of the left subtree and should be less than the key value of the right subtree. Okay, so there are two people who have answered this question, slightly different answers. One person says first element in order walk. First element in order walk. Very good answer. First element in order walk, because but we have to know how did he find the first element in order walk. What did in order walk do? Where did it go for the first element? But if you can find it, then that is the least element. Very good. Good answer. Another answer that has come in, right, basically is from SDM college, which says the lowest is on the lowest of the left side. So to find the minimum, so to go to the left side of the tree and find the lowest, I don't know what that means, lowest, which find the minimum of the left side. To find the minimum of a node, go to the left side and find the minimum of the left side. So again recursively, which means for that to find the minimum, go to the left side and find the minimum. So keep going down the left side and you should find the minimum. I guess that's what the answer is. Correct, both of them are correct, both are correct answers, good answers. So the minimum value can be found by just going down the left side of the tree. How do you go on the left side of the tree? While the left child of x is not nil, what does it say? It means basically keep going down the left till you find nil, okay. So as long as the left child of x is not nil, keep going down. How do you mean go down? We can go down two ways, go down to the left child or go down to the right child. Here you are saying go down to the left child. So while left child of x is not nil, x is equal to left child of x. You are going down the left of the tree till you hit a node which has no left children. Doesn't mean it's a leaf, okay, doesn't mean it's a leaf. You could have situation like this. So this could be 7, you could go down like this 5, you could go down like this 4, and this could be 6. This can't be 6, right? So this could be 6, this can be 5. So this is a binary search tree, right? So we start with 7, we go down the left of the tree, we go down the left of the tree, we try to go down the left of the tree, we can't. It's not a leaf, remember, it's not a leaf, 4 is not a leaf. There is another node below it which is 5, but we can't go further left. Since we can't go further left, we return 4, that is the minimum. So go down the left of the tree does not mean go down the left of the tree till you find a leaf. Many people make this mistake, okay. I have seen when I give this as a coding assignment, many people make this mistake. You should not go down till you find a leaf, okay. You should go down till you can go down no further on the left. It means I can't go further left, therefore this node is the last node, 4, okay. Similarly, to find maximum, what do? I go down the right side. While right child exists, go down the right child till you can go no further. So similarly, you could have some nodes like this, 10 here, 9 here, 15 here, 11 here, like this. Okay, so this is not a leaf. 15 is not a leaf, but 15 is a node where you cannot go further down, right side. So when you can't go further down, you stop and return that value as the maximum value. Okay, so very simple to find the minimum maximum. To find the minimum, go left side. To find the maximum, go right side. All right. How do I find the successor of a node? Okay, how to find the successor of a node? Now things start becoming a little tricky. Now the first thing we observe basically is that the successor of a node is the minimum of the right subtree of the node, if there is a right subtree. So like say take 3, it has a right child 4, the minimum of, so that it's only one node, so therefore 4, so 4 has to be the successor of 3. Take 6, right, it has a right subtree which consists of 3 nodes, 7, 13 and 9. The minimum of those is 7. Why is 7 the minimum? Because you cannot go further left from 7. So 7 is the, if you start from 7 and try to go left, you cannot. So that must be the minimum. So the right subtree of 6 is 7, 13, 9. The minimum of that is 7. Successor of 6 is 7. So the first observation we make is if there is a right subtree for or right child for a node, then in that subtree under that child will lie the successor. The minimum of that tree will be the successor. So how to find the minimum? Go down the left side of that tree till you cannot go any further and return that. That will be the successor. Okay. So very easy for me to find the successor of a node when there is a right child. Okay. What do? Go to the right subtree, find the minimum. We have already seen how to find the minimum. Find the minimum. Okay. Problem comes when there is no right child. For example, 13 has no right child. What do? 13 has no right child. So where is the successor of 13? In fact, I know in this tree 13 successor is 15, it's somewhere else. 17 has no right child, but 17 successor is 18, which is a parent, it's nice. 4 has no right child, but 4 successor is 6, somewhat far away, somewhere here it is. 9 has no right child, 9 successor is a parent, it's 13. So successor, when something does not have a right child, finding the successor is not so obvious, right? It looks something funny. It might be parent, may not be parent, maybe somewhere else, some ancestor it may be. So how do I find it? The answer is, if the node does not have a right child, then the algorithm to find the successor says, go up the tree left, go left up the tree till you can go no further, then turn right and stop. Okay. If the node does not have, okay, I am not going to prove this to you, the successor. Okay, that's easy. It's part of a tutorial anyway. But anyway, so if the node does not have a right child, then the successor basically, the successor of that node is found by going up the tree left, turning right and stopping. So 13, for example, to find the successor of 13, it has no right child. So what should I do? I should go up left, go up left till I reach 6. Now I can't go any further. When I can't go any further, I turn right and stop, immediately stop. So I find 15. Okay, to find 4, the successor of 4, I doesn't have a right child. So what do? I go up left. So I go to 3, can't go any further left. So turn right and stop. I find 6, which is the successor. To find the successor of 9, I go up left. I can't go any further left because 9 has no way to go left. So I turn right and stop. So I find 13, the successor. Okay. 17 similarly, can't go any further left, up. So turn right and stop. So I find 18. So the algorithm for finding the successor of a node which does not have a right child is go up left as far as possible, and we can't go any further, turn right and stop. Remember this, okay, very simple rule. To find the successor of a node in a binary search tree, if there is a right child, look for the successor in the right child. How do you find the successor in the right child? The minimum of the right child, that subtree, right subtree will be the right child. How do you find the minimum of the right subtree? Start from the root of the right subtree, which is your right child, and go down left till you can go no further. That will be the minimum. That will be the successor of this node. What do you do if this node does not have a right child? Then the algorithm says go up the tree left, turn right and stop. Okay, that's what it says. Now why does that algorithm work? So why does that algorithm work? I have explained all this to you. So why does, so we can see basically that the successor works. So let's take the successor of 20 just to check, right? Successor of 20, in this tree there is no successor for 20. What does my algorithm say? It says go as far as possible left up the tree. So from 20 go to 18, from 18 go to 15, 15 I can't go any further. At this point go right and stop, go right is nil and stop, so it's nil. So successor of 20 is nil, which says also that means that there is no successor for 20 in the tree. So this algorithm at least works for this tree, we know it works. Why is it correct? Why is it correct? Why is it correct that the successor of a node is found in the right subtree, the minimum of the right subtree, and why is it correct that the successor of a node when there is no right child is found by going up the tree left, turning right and stopping? The answer is that is the node that is visited next when we do in-order tree walk. Somebody correctly pointed out, to find the minimum, take the first node that you will get in in-order tree walk. Now we are asking to find successor, what do we do? The answer is take the next node after this node that is found in in-order tree walk. What is the next node after this node printed in in-order tree walk? So you know basically that when there is a right child in in-order tree walk, the right child will all these three in the right will be printed. So you know that you will go there. But if there is no right child, then what will in-order tree walk do? It's finished printing this node, there is no right child, so it will return. In-order tree walk will return basically means it will return. So in in-order tree walk you visit the left child, you visit the node, you visit the right child, right? So when you return from the right child you will come back, when you are coming back you are coming back left. Remember, coming back from the right child, you are coming back left. So this node is also finished, so you may come back again, you will go left. So in-order tree walk will return by going left up the tree, and after it has finished going up the tree it will hit a node where it cannot go further up left the tree, and then it will return back to a node for which this is a left child, right? So a node, basically to visit a node you will visit its left child, and that left child, in order to visit that left child you will visit the children of that node. So you would have visited that one's right child, and then when that one returns you will visit back, come back to this node, and then you will come back to this parent, right, like this. So you went to the left child, went to its left child, right child, came back, and then you came back here. So the in-order tree walk, after it has finished printing this tree, will go left back and then print this node. This is the next node that is printed. So after finishing the left child you print a node. So after it comes back from the left child you print this node. So the next node that is printed in order tree walk after a given node will be either a node in the left subtree, or if there is no left subtree, there is no right subtree, sorry, it will be the node found by going up the tree left, turning right and stopping. That's the node, which is why it's correct. Okay. All this you will learn only if you actually try it out. So please take a tree, draw it, print it out and do the in-order tree walk carefully, slowly with your hand. Okay. Then you will learn what's going on. That's the only way you learn. All my slides and I can keep talking, but you will never get a feel for it unless you do the thing yourself with the tree. You draw a tree, go down the tree, go up the tree, print it in an order, then you will get an idea of what is going on. Okay. So very simple to see this. Therefore, finding the successor of a node, the procedure goes like this. If there is a right child of the tree, find the minimum of the right subtree, this thing. If not, what should you do? Keep going up left. So going up left is like this, written like this. While your parent is not nil and while you are the right child of your parent. That's why it means you are going left. You are the right child of your parent means you are going left. So as long as you are the right child of your parent, keep going left till you can't go any further, and when you hit a nil, which means you can't go any further, at that point you take your parent, which will be right, you will be turning right, because you can't go any further left. So the parent for you now has to be on the right side. So then you take your parent and print it. That is the successor. Similarly, if you want to find the predecessor of a node, you do exactly the same thing, except that you look, instead of right, you look left. So if a node has a left subchild, then the predecessor is the maximum of the left subtree. Okay. If the node has no left subchild, then what do you do to find the predecessor? You go up the tree towards the right. Go up right to the tree, turn left and stop. Okay, just like here you went up the tree left and then turn right and stop. Here you'll go up the tree to the right and turn left and stop. And that is the predecessor. Okay, so how do you do insert? So to insert a node 12, you can just search this tree for 12. Start with 15. 12 is less than 15, so you have to go left. 12 is greater than 6, so go right. 12 is greater than 7, so go right. 12 is less than 13, so go left. 12 is greater than 9, so go right and plant it there. Okay. So the problem, the insert into a binary search tree involves just searching the binary search tree, and when you find you have found the node, just before that node you just plant it there. Okay, just either it's before or after, so you plant it there. So if you want to insert 14, similarly you will start with 15, less than 15, greater than 6, greater than 7, greater than 13, so you will plant it here. Okay, like this. So you can insert a node very easily. The algorithm for insert I will not explain to you, but this is what you are doing. It's the same thing, right? You are searching for the node. This is the searching for the node. Go left or right depending on whether the key is left or less or greater. Once you have found where to do it, just set the pointers, parent pointers and child pointers correctly. Right? That's what this is doing. Okay. Finally, we come to the probably the most difficult operation on the binary search tree, which is deleting a node. Okay, so there are three cases to consider. First case is, what happens if you delete a node which has no children, like say 17, there's no children. So deleting the node with no children is very easy. Just delete the node, just kill this node and done, right? Remove it, you got another binary search tree, no problem, very easy. Okay. Next question we are asking is, okay, it's easy to do nodes with no children. What do I do with nodes which have one children? Like say I want to delete 7 or I want to delete 13, both of which have one child. How do I delete it? So if I want to delete 7, which is node with one child, it has one child which is 13. What I do basically is I do an operation that is called splicing, right? Splicing, which means you cut out 7 from both sides, cut out the 7 from both sides and connect these two things, right? Cut from both sides and connect the two pipes, connect this pipe with this pipe and remove the 7 like this. Okay. Effectively what you have done is you removed 7 and made 13 the child of 6. You made 13 the child of 6. So this operation called splicing, splice out the node 7 and make 13 the child of 6. Of course you could ask, suppose I want to delete 13 not 7, right? There is nothing right, so what do I connect to 7? The answer is there is something to the left. It's a one child is there, 9. Put 9 where 13 is. So just splice out that 13 node and put 9 to the right of 7. So wherever 13 was, take the left or right child, whichever single child, and put it in the same place as 13. That's what you are doing here. So deleting a node with one child is very easy. Just cut the parent, cut the child and connect the child to the parent, right? And when you connect the child to the parent, the direction in which you are connecting it is the same as what the node you cut out, whichever direction the node which you cut out was, that direction it is. Okay, so last case, most difficult case is what happens when you cut a node which has two children. Say I want to cut 6. 6 has two children, 3 and 7. So now if it was 7 which I am cutting out, it was easy because I just could splice. But 6 has two children, so what do I do now? The answer is very similar to what we did in heap when we did delete, right? We took the last element and put it in its place, something like that. Here also we try to do something like that. We say rather than deleting 6, let's delete the successor of 6. And see, this is a very clever thing that we are doing actually. Let's delete the successor of 6. Now one thing we know is that 6 has two children, therefore it has a right child. Because it has a right child, therefore we know the successor of 6 lies inside the right child. We know that successor lies inside the right subtree. And in fact the right subtree, not only we know it's in the right subtree, we know it's the minimum of the right subtree. We also know that the minimum has a property. What is the property? Minimum is obtained by going down the tree to the left till you can't go any further, which means that the minimum will have the property that it has no left child. So in this case the minimum is 7. 7 has no left child. Minimum will never have a left child, right, because it's minimum. Minimum means you have gone down as far as possible to the left, you can't go any further. So minimum will not have a left child. So we know two things. We know that 6 has 2 children, therefore it has a right child. Because we know it has a right child, we know the successor of 6 has to lie in that right subtree. We also know that it is the minimum of the right subtree. We also know that the minimum of the right subtree will have no left child. Therefore that minimum has only one child. Minimum is a single child node. So what we are going to do is, rather than cutting out 6, we are going to cut 7, which is the successor of 6. How do I cut 7? How do I cut 7? 7 is a single child node. So I know what to do. Remove that node and splice it. Remove 7 and splice it. This is how I do 7. But what has happened now is that I have a tree in which I wanted to delete 6, but I actually deleted 7, right? I deleted the successor of 6. I deleted something else. So in order to actually delete 6 and not 7, what I'll do is I'll copy the content of 7 into 6. So copy 7's content into 6. So what will I get? I'll get 7 here and 6 will be gone because 6 is written, overwritten, right? 6 is gone. So the algorithm for deleting a node with 2 children is very simple. What we do is we reduce it to the one child case. How do you reduce one child case? You need to find a node which has got one child. Which node will you find? Take the successor of the node. We know this node has 2 children, so it has a right child. We know it has a right child, therefore the successor of that node should be in the right child, right? We already seen that it should be in the right child, and not only should it be in the right child, it will be the minimum of the right child. The minimum has a property that it is found by going towards the left, can't go any further. Because it's found by going towards the left, can't go any further, therefore the minimum will never have a left child. So we know the minimum which has this property that it basically has only one child. So the successor of 6 has a single child, we know that. Beautiful, okay. Because 6 successor has a single child, it's easy to delete the successor of 6 by splicing, because we know what to do for single child node. So we splice it. So you splice it. After splicing, copy the value of 7 into this node. Copy 7 into this node. Whatever value is there, 7, you copy into this node. So you replace 6 by 7. So effectively you have deleted 6. Is it okay? So very, very simple procedure for deleting a node from a tree. I have written it in procedural form here, or you can read this procedure. All it is saying is check whether the tree has 2 children, 1 children or no children. So this basically, this case, left child z equal to nil or right side, it says basically it's 1 or 0 children. If it has 0 or 1 children, right, so okay, so basically this is saying what is the node to splice. This is saying which node to splice, whether it is z. If the node is to be cut out, either you cut, if it has 2 children, which means if left child z is not equal to nil and right child z is not equal to nil, that is the case when you have 2 children, then the node you should cut out is the successor of z. If it is not, then the node that you want to cut out basically is z itself. So should you cut z or should you cut the successor of z? That is what this particular procedure is checking. Okay. Then what we are saying basically is once you splice the node out, then which node do you connect? When you cut out the node, what should you connect? It's either the left child or the right child, right? So that's what this is saying, which node to connect. And then basically you are doing the splicing, actual splicing operation over here, okay. And if you find that you have actually not cut the node but you have cut its successor, then you have to copy the node, copy the value of the successor to the node. That's what this is doing. So if you examine the 3 parts of this delete operation, you will find that it's very easy. Now one thing that you should learn to do as a good programmer, good programming is all about writing code that you can read, okay. If you can't read code, you can't write code. If you can't write code, I mean you will make mistakes, make a lot of mistakes. One of the important rules of writing good code is to be able to write the code in one page, like I have done here. If you can't write the code like this in one page, use routines, subroutines, till you can write the code in one page. If you can't write the code in one page, you will make thousands of mistakes just moving between one page and another. So as a good tip for programming, please try and write all your code so that you can see the code on one page. You will be able to see by inspection. Otherwise you will make a lot of mistakes, and that's why I like to write all my code like this in one page. Okay. Okay, so what is the complexity of our binary search tree algorithms? We have seen basically that all the algorithms we did on binary search tree are proportional in terms of time to the height of the tree. And the height of the tree, whether you inserting, you go down the tree, or deleting, right, or whatever it is, everything you are doing by going up or down the tree. So it depends on the height of the tree. Now what is the height of a binary search tree? The answer is the height of the binary search tree in the worst case can be order n. So the complexity in the worst case can be order n. But it is possible to maintain the height of the binary search tree in order log n. Keep the height at order log n by doing some very simple balancing tricks like we did in Fibonacci heap and binomial heap and so on. By some tricks we can keep the height of the tree managed properly. Okay, we will see how to do that in the next class. But if we don't do that, binary search tree, the complexity actually worst case is order n. But we can show that on the average, right, on the average binary search trees are order log n. It means that if I randomly generate a binary search tree, I do some inserts, deletes, whatever I do randomly, create a binary search tree, that tree will have height which is order log n. A randomly generated binary search tree has height order log n, which shows basically that the average complexity of binary search tree is order log n. So which is good news for us. Binary search trees are good data structures, but we can do even better if we can keep the worst case also to order log n, and that we will see how to do in the next class. So to summarize, heaps are not good for doing predecessor and successor. So we need a new data structure. This new data structure we define as binary search tree, in which we try and maintain the keys in a new way. That is, we are saying we'll keep it in such a way. It's not that the minimum is in the root, which is how it was in the heap. We'll keep something in the root such a way that thing to the left is always less, thing to the right is always greater. We'll keep it like that. Then all the operations that can be done on the binary search tree are all order of the height of the tree. And if you manage the height of the tree properly, you can keep the operations to order log n. Okay, so we studied heaps, we studied binomial heaps, we studied Fibonacci heaps, right? Binomial and Fibonacci heaps are actually multiple trees. There are many trees in a binomial and a Fibonacci heap, right? We saw that, but they are managed in a very careful way. We saw binary search tree, which is a tree, not a heap. It's a tree, okay, and it's not stored in heap order, and it's a single tree, and it's binary, which means that every node has 2 children, at most 2 children, and you can do operations, interesting operations on the binary search tree. Alright, so with that we'll stop for today. Only when you solve problems in algorithms and data structures you actually understand them. Any amount of slides theory you don't understand anything, okay. Only way you understand this thing, algorithms and data structures, is by doing. You have to actually do on pen and paper first, write code, and when you write code it doesn't work, it crashes, it doesn't do the result, then only you learn, okay. So please practice everything that I am teaching, go and try out code, and then we can discuss. Alright, thank you.